I'm Robert Ellis, and you're watching the AU Review.
Welcome back to Sydney.
Thanks for having us.
You were last here, how long ago were the Justin Townsend shows? About a year ago?
Less than that. It was in February, end of January, February.
That sounds about right. I had the opportunity to see you on that run of shows, and
cool.
It seemed like it was a great chance for you to be introduced to the Australian audiences.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and everybody liked Justin over here, so the shows were all pretty full, and it was definitely a very lucky first experience over here.
And I think you're playing some of the same venues this time around. I think you played the Basement, and
yes.
you're playing it this time.
Yes, to far less people, but you know, still there's been some enthusiastic people that have come out and really been into the music. So
it's. I mean, Justin did it as well. I mean, it's one of those things that the shows are just going to keep growing for you.
That's the hope.
Are you planning to make this a regular jaunt?
I really hope so. This trip especially, I've completely fallen in love with Australia, and I want to just come back all the time. Yeah, next time I think I'm only here for like 10 days on this run, so next time I think I'm going to try to space it out and maybe have a couple days off in Sydney and a couple days off in Melbourne, and just relax, hang with friends.
You mentioned that it's slightly different this time around. You're playing small shows because you're the headline act. So how have you found crowds have responded to the material?
They seem into it. When I'm playing with a headliner and I'm opening, I only usually have 30 to 45 minutes to play a set. So I have the luxury of picking, sometimes, depends on the room, but sometimes the most up-tempo, like fun songs. And when it's my own headlining set, I have a tendency to just play all the songs that I want to play, which sometimes coincidentally are pretty sad and depressing. So, I think there's this kind of uncomfortable adjustment that the audience has to make if they've seen me open, because I'm sure they are left wanting a little bit more, because that's kind of the beauty of an opening slot is 30 minutes is like not enough for any concert, So yeah, they seem really appreciative though. They seem into it. And last night's show was fun. The two shows we did in Melbourne were amazing. And just I was just really surprised at how many people were there that knew my songs and had requested specific songs. And yeah, it's been fantastic. And
you just played a song off your next record. You've been working on it for a little while now.
Yeah,
it's finally about to be released. Can you tell us about the process behind this record, maybe compared to your last?
Well, the last record that I did was the first record that I had done with my label in the States, who's called New West, and it was my first real deal record, record deal. I had made one record previous to that I self-released, and that I recorded in kind of a home studio at a friend's house. But Photographs was kind of my big opportunity to do something that would have national exposure. So I did that at a studio with this guy, Steve Christensen, and I was still kind of easing my way into the process of making real pro records. So a lot of that record was kind of like mad scientists, like me and Steve in the studio, just layering instruments and spending lots of time and all that. With this record, the new one that's coming out, The Lights from the Chemical Plant, we got this good buddy and amazing producer, Jakir King, to come in and help out. And so we did a lot of it full band live with all of us in the studio, and then some overdubs. And just the attention to detail on this record is a lot greater on my part, really focusing on the songs, figuring out how to pare down lyrics to make the most concise statements, and focusing on every sound, every part of the recording, so that hopefully it's the sum of all its parts are greater than what the last one was, And Jakir's incredible. He's one of my favorite engineers, as well as just an incredible ear for production and songs, and he just knows how to be I think it would be stronger if we tried this, move the second verse here or whatever. And I had never had anybody to bounce those kind of ideas off of. It's always been a little bit of just me by myself. And so that was really nice to have sort of a feedback loop, where if I had an idea, he could be that's great, or he could be I don't know, that's maybe a little crazy, and vice versa.
So it's a bit less of an experiment.
Yeah, exactly. We'd kind of tuned it in, knew what we were doing.
And you mentioned that when you get the opportunity, the songs tend to go down a sad.
Yeah.
I mean, does that reflect the next record? Is it a more somber record?
Yes and no. in the lyrics and the writing, I think some of the themes are a little bit more complex and maybe a little somber, but the full bandness of the record, I think, still makes it kind of fun to listen to. It's not a total downer. I think that when I made the demos for this record and I sent them out to my record label in the States and to my management and stuff, they were just solo acoustic. And I got the feedback I got from everybody was like, "Oh, this is a huge bummer. This record is gonna be like really sad." But you know, when you get everything like arrangement and the band cooking and everything, it's like people don't really notice that stuff. Sometimes I don't even think people really listen to the lyrics. You know, like,
well, the Decemberists put out a record that was entirely about infanticide, so. But the organ comes in, don't even notice it.
Yeah, totally. Like, I love this song.
Tell us a little bit about the band that you've put together.
I've got guys from Houston that I've been playing with forever. Will Van Horn plays steel, Kelly DeWitt plays guitar, Joffrey Miller plays bass, and then on the record, we got my friend Josh Block to play drums, and he plays with another band that's fairly successful, so he's only able to play with us live whenever, you know, he can make it. But we've been lucky enough to play a bunch of festivals and play shows and, you know, become really close with a lot of other friends that play music. And, you know, in the recent past, I've had a bunch of offers from different drummers to come sit in whenever they can. So like on the Deer Tick tour we just did, Deer Tick, Dennis and Robbie and Chris all backed us up. So,
cool.
You know, it's all kind of a financial thing. Like if I could afford to, I would just pay everybody like, you know, fat stacks and have them come out on tour constantly. But sometimes we have to like, you know, figure out, are we going to do it as a 3-piece or a 4-piece, or, you know, who's going to play drums, and some of that stuff is like determined geographically too. Like if we have a Texas run, I got to think like, oh, well, I can't fly, you know, this guy from Providence down. If I, you know, it would be a lot cheaper to find. So, yeah, stuff like that is a little bit mind-numbing, but necessary at this stage.
And you're performing solo here in Australia?
Yeah, and that's obviously an extension of that. I'd love to have a full band here, but, you know, flights and hotels and all that stuff, I mean, you really have to make a fortune to even bring a group over.
That's right.
That's kind of when I think, when I'll consider it a success. Like, I'm really not in it to make any money over here. Like, I would just be really excited to come play full band shows. Yeah. And I think when we're able to do that is when I'll be like, okay, we kind of broke through.
Do you enjoy life on the road?
Yes, yeah, tremendously. But just like everything, it has ups and downs, and I think more than some things, it has pretty high highs and pretty low lows. I most of the time am very happy when I'm out here, and I really enjoy it, and I kind of thrive on the road. But you know, those times when you get down, it's pretty low. It's pretty destitute, you know. Especially if you guys can just imagine being over in Australia. I'm literally half the way you know, around the world from my home and everything that's familiar to me. So when you get bummed out, it can feel pretty lonesome.
And to end on a brighter note, looking forward post your Australia trip, how are you rounding out the year?
I go home. I'm going to be producing this record in Texas. Got to play a music festival, and then I go to Texas, and I'm producing this record for a band called the Whiskey Shivers. They're like a bluegrass group, really, really awesome. And then I play some shows in Texas, and I think we have shows right up to the new year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the new record, new year?
I've got UK and Europe in January, and then February is when the record comes out, and we start a 2-month-long headlining tour in the States for February and March, which will route us around South by Southwest. And then I hope I get to come back to Australia. You know, it's looking like maybe after March or something. But
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we hope to see you back here then. There's of course a couple of famous blues festivals around that time, so who knows?
I hope so.
And thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.